Hello and welcome to Nerd Parish, a bi-weekly podcast where I tell two stories, one from the Bible and one not, and pray that you get some meaning out of them. My name is Aaron. This episode will have spoilers for season 8 of Doctor Who, so beware of that. If you aren't likely to watch Doctor Who, I think you absolutely can have this spoiled. I think the story is still very powerful, but I do want to give fair warning if you're planning on watching Doctor Who on Netflix and you're excited for season 8, you're excited for the advent of Peter Capaldi, which you probably should be, then I'll just let you know that I'm going to spoil the end of that season. I first of all want to take a moment to explain why I'm doing this in general and what I hope comes from it. As much as I love the Bible, I've noticed that there are definitely points in time where it's harder for us, for our modern context, 2,000 years removed from many of the stories that happened in the Bible, to really understand what emotions we're supposed to be feeling, to really understand the deep meaning behind a lot of those, because I don't think there are very many stories where the facts are compelling, but I think that often the emotions are compelling in those stories. And so I really want to highlight those emotions, and for our modern context, I think probably the medium that is best at conveying an emotion is television. Music does a fantastic job, but it's very up to the person who's receiving. It's very up to the audience to determine what emotion they feel. Sometimes you can listen to sad music and you go, well, I didn't feel sad from that emotion, or I didn't feel sad from that show. I absolutely think that books are fantastic, but books are a little bit less accessible in our modern context. And I strongly believe that television is fantastic at conveying an emotion because it creates an empathic connection between the characters that are on the screen and the audience. And so when something happens on Buffy, I feel the way Buffy feels because I've made this connection between me and her, because this connection has been made between me and her. So I'm generally trying to highlight the emotional beats that are similar between genre fiction that I love and things in the Bible that I feel are very important to grasp. This should be a podcast for everyone, no matter how entrenched you are in biblical knowledge, no matter how entrenched you are in genre knowledge. I think I'm going to skew a little bit towards presuming that you're familiar with genre knowledge, but I should, in every case, give you enough background story that the stories that I choose to tell should still be impactful to you, whether or not you've watched that on television. And also, it's just a really great gateway for you to go, that sounds like a story that I would love to hear, or I would love to see acted out with fantastic actors. And so you can go on Netflix or Hulu or whatever your medium of choice is and get a chance to watch these things. So my first story is about Doctor Who and about the Doctor in general. For those who are not familiar with Doctor Who, it's a show about a time traveler. The Doctor is a person who travels throughout time and space more than anything else to experience the wonder of the universe. He acts heroic in a lot of ways, and that's honestly what drew me to the Doctor. But more than anything else, I think that the Doctor is just traveling to explore and to enjoy. And that becomes particularly notable when you look at his companions and part of the reasons why he has companions. He primarily keeps a companion with him so that he's able to see the universe with fresh eyes. And I think that this makes complete and total sense. Anyone who's walked around just their neighborhood with someone who's 5 or under gets a completely fresh outlook on how amazing their neighborhood is and what's going on there. Because if you walk around with a 3-year-old, the 3-year-old's going to be super excited about the leaves that are falling in fall. Or they're going to be extremely interested in that dog who's walking and what's the dog doing and what's the dog thinking and can I go pet the dog? And me as an older male, I don't tend to process concern for the fact that the leaves are falling. They do that every year. They've been doing it for my whole life, and really I'm pretty sure they were doing it beforehand. And so I'm not that excited about it until I see it through another person's eyes. And I think that's what the Doctor's doing with this companion. He brings along a human person so that he can see the wonders of the universe through eyes that are uninitiated, and therefore he can re-experience it and continue his love of wonder. And so for season 8, his companion is named Clara. And one more time, going to spoil this season, I don't think it would ruin the season for you if you've heard it, but this is definitely what I would consider a spoiler. So just letting you know one more time. 3, 2, 1. Clara has a boyfriend whose name is Danny Pink, and he dies in a car crash in the next to last episode. He is walking along the street telling Clara that he loves her, and a car hits him and he dies. So at that point, Clara makes what I would consider to be a fairly rational reaction, and she says, I know a time traveler. I know someone who makes a habitual practice of going into a time stream, finding something that's wrong, fixing it, and making the world a better place. And the world would be a better place if my boyfriend were still in it, so I should go find him and make him fix the time stream and bring my boyfriend back to life, essentially. And so she goes to him, and she steals the keys to his time machine. She convinces him to take her to a volcano, and she gets outside and she says, Doctor, you have to go save my boyfriend. He just died. You have to go save him. And the doctor says, no, it's not happening. It's not something I'm going to do. I'm sorry. He's dead. And Clara says, no, you don't understand. I'm not asking. I am telling you. You have to go save him. If you do not save him, we're going to be stuck here on the volcano forever. I will not let you leave. And the doctor says, no, sorry, it won't happen. And to make a slightly long story short, she throws all the keys into the volcano when he keeps refusing. At which point the doctor reveals that that was a dream, but now we know where we stand. Good to know. And let's go save your boyfriend. And this is Clara's reaction.
You're going to help me?
Well, why wouldn't I help you?
Because what I just did,
You betrayed me. You betrayed my trust. You betrayed our friendship. You betrayed everything that I've ever stood for. You let me down!
Then why are you helping me?
Why? Do you think I care for you so little that betraying me would make a difference?
So that was my first story. I think that there's so much meaning to be found there, just in terms of understanding God's love for us and what the gospel really is. And I think that the story that most easily parallels it is the story of the prodigal son, which is probably the most popular of the parables that Jesus ever told. The particular one that I'm pulling from is in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 through 32. And it starts with a fairly well-off man who has 2 children. And his youngest son comes to him and says, Dad, you should give me my inheritance right now. Recognizing that in this culture, similar to our culture, you don't receive your inheritance until after your father is dead. But the father doesn't make any qualms about this. No, you're disrespecting me. No, if you leave the estate together for longer, I can grow the business. Instead, he just divides the property between the 2 sons and gives the younger son his share. And the son pretty immediately gets together his inheritance and he leaves the land. He leaves the country. Which, in a culture which is all about family, there's no real way in the ancient Jewish culture, there's no real way to define yourself without defining yourself within a family. Rather than saying your last name, there were no surnames. Your surname was your father's name. I would be Aaron, son of Gregory, rather than my actual name. But he chooses to leave this, and he leaves his country, recognizing once again that Israel, as a place, has been fighting to maintain its identity, and has recently come back from diaspora, and has recently reestablished this homeland. And he says, forget the homeland, I don't care about the homeland. Forget the family, I don't want to be defined by my family. I don't want to be defined within this structure. And so I'm going to leave. And he spends his money on basically partying. He spends his money on wild living. He's profligate with his money and allows it all to kind of dribble away. And after he has spent his entire inheritance, which should theoretically last you, consider technically, I guess, a lifetime. He spends it all, and then there's a severe famine, and he has to go find someone from the country who has pigs, an unclean animal that Jewish people aren't even supposed to touch. But he not only has to touch them, but he now has to serve them. He is hired to feed them, to take care of them, to act as a servant to them. And he was so hungry that the slop he was feeding the pigs looked good. And no one in this country took pity on him, which you can understand in the midst of a severe famine, that we need to feed our countrymen first, and then whatever's left over we'll give to this foreigner. I think that that's definitely representative of how the ancient world worked. And so he eventually realizes that even my father's employees are eating better than I am. This is not at all okay. I should go back to my dad and throw myself at his mercy and say, Dad, I don't deserve to be a son. I've sinned against heaven and against you. I don't deserve to be a son. Just hire me on, and maybe I can get a little bread. And so he goes up to his father, and while he's still far away, his father sees him and runs, which is often considered to be a very atypical act. We're talking about a culture in which respect is everything, in which dignity is important, not just for yourself, but for your family name. And as the son is returning, he throws everything to the side and says, forget about dignity. Forget about the respect due to me in my station. I'm going to run to my son. And he does that. And he throws his arms around him and he kisses his son. And he says, let's throw a feast. In the midst of this famine, in a time where everyone's starving, let's throw a feast for my son. Let's get all of the best wine. Let's get all of the best food. That calf that we've been saving for the holidays, let's kill it now and have a fantastic feast because my son was lost and now he's come back. At which point the elder brother hears that we're having a feast for his younger brother who left, who threw away the bonds of family. This younger brother who left the country that we are working hard to build. And he gets very upset and essentially goes sulking in a corner. At which point the father comes to him and says, why are you sulking? And the brother says, I've never received a party. You are treating him better than you've ever treated me. And the father just responds saying, son, you are my son. Everything I have is yours. But shouldn't we rejoice now that your father, who once was lost, has now come home? Father, shouldn't we rejoice that the son, who in a very tangible way has betrayed everything that this family stands for, everything that makes us who we are. He betrayed the bonds of family. He betrays the bonds of nation. And he betrayed the natural order of things. Shouldn't we rejoice now that he's returned? And I think I took a couple of licenses in really hitting that notion of betrayal, but I think it's absolutely true to the story. That the son had left everything that made the Israelites who they were. And now that he's returned, we're rejoicing and we're celebrating. I just want to say thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you get something out of this. Hopefully something has become a little bit more clearer to you, whether it's specifically the story of the prodigal son or something in terms of God's love for you, or it might be a very minor point that I hit. I don't know. But I pray that it's educational for you. I pray that it's useful. I also want to just ask, if you happen to enjoy the show, please do leave a review on iTunes, which is far and away the best way for someone else to hear of the show and for other people to find it. So I'd greatly appreciate that. If you do want to contact me, you can find me at nerdparish.com, or you can find me on Twitter at NerdParish, NerdParish, or you can leave a comment on iTunes, and I'll absolutely read all of those. If you have any suggestions in terms of things that you would want me to do from either side, either there's a Bible story that you've always been a little bit confused of, or a Bible concept that you're always a little bit confused about and you'd like me to kind of highlight those, that would be awesome. Also, if there's a particular scene or event in something that is related to geek culture really in any way that you're curious to know what parallels might be drawn in the Bible, I'd love to do that as well. So please do just let me know in the comments, and thank you very much. Have a fantastic night. Bye.